Nikola Tesla is one of the most important pioneers in the field of electricity. Throughout his life, however, the ingenious inventor, engineer, and physicist was seen as a misunderstood genius who lived in the shadow of his more prominent research colleagues. Though in modern times, we still feed on those breathtaking ideas and inventions that Nikola Tesla once launched. This gifted master of his trade laid the foundations for the alternating current network, remote control, neon tubes, and electric motors, among other things. No less exciting than the countless scientific milestones that Tesla achieved are the predictions that the genius made about the future. In some interviews, the pioneer of the electrical world drew an image of the future that leaves us completely baffled due to the accuracy of his predictions. In today's video, we'd like to explore several of Tesla's predictions that have ultimately come true. Some of these you won't believe. But before we get into it, be sure to hit that like button and ring the notification bell for more videos. Also, stick around for number 2 if you want to see one of the most bizarre predictions any scientist has ever made. Smartphones. Could you imagine a life without smartphones these days? In fact, you may be watching today's video on one right now. These small devices enrich our everyday life in a wide variety of areas. Regardless of whether it's calling friends, taking photos, or surfing the internet, all these useful functions are just a touch away with a device that can easily fit into any ordinary pocket. What's absolutely normal for us nowadays was a far-off future scenario in the first half of the 20th century, an idea that simply didn't fit in with the technology that was available at the time. The prediction that Nikola Tesla made in an interview in 1926 is therefore all the more astonishing. When asked how he thought the world of communications and technology would develop, this genius described a detailed scenario that practically perfectly reflects today's reality. Tesla said that in the future, people would be networked with each other through wireless communication technology. According to this, people would be able to communicate with each other at any time of the day, after a period of about 100 years, even if they were separated by a distance of thousands of kilometers. The means of communication will be so perfectly worked out that despite this enormous distance, people would have the feeling of speaking face to face. The equipment that would be used for this would be so handy that they could easily fit in a man's pocket. If we compare this precise prediction with our actual reality, we realize once again how far ahead of his time Nikola Tesla was. Not only did Nikola Tesla make an accurate prediction about the future of telephone communications, he even offhandedly predicted the arrival of Apple's FaceTime calling system. Nikola directly referenced the idea of being able to speak to someone face to face. If you were to even suggest this idea to someone who lived just 30 or 40 years ago, they would have looked at you as if you were completely insane. However, Tesla accurately predicted the arrival of this technology nearly 100 years before it was released to the public. W-LAN, or Wireless Local Area Network. When Tesla revealed his ideas and predictions about what the world would be like when everyone had access to a smartphone, he also explained his predictions about how these phones would communicate with one another, explaining his idea behind a universal wireless communication system. In detail, Tesla was certain at the time that the wireless receivers of his era would soon be replaced by much more sophisticated machines. According to this theory, practically all types of reception interference would be eliminated in the future, which means that thousands and thousands of receivers and transmitters can be operated without any problems. In the same breath, Tesla also took a look at the development of classic print media. In doing so, this genius suggested that newspapers would no longer be delivered directly to households in the distant future, but rather that they could be printed out right away at home. While this prediction may not have been entirely accurate, we do technically read news from our own homes, and the majority of us do not have newspaper subscriptions. Instead, we read the news on our phones, tablets, or computers. Tesla was also familiar with the principle of modern smart homes as early as the 1920s. The clever wireless technology would make managing your own household much easier. A look at the reality of our lives shows that the inventor was right here too. Nowadays, smart home technology is commonplace. Just think about it. In today's world with voice assistants like Amazon and Google Home, we can do anything we want without lifting a finger. You can easily just state your command aloud and a tiny computer will do the hard work for you. This may involve turning on your bedroom lights, changing the channel on a television, or viewing your security cameras around your home. It's as simple as just speaking what you would like to happen, the exact way that Tesla dreamed it. Wireless energy transmission. If you follow Tesla's predictions, one day it might even be possible to transport energy using wireless transmission paths. Should we succeed in reaching this technological milestone, it would be a real revolution in the field of energy generation. Nikola Tesla worked diligently to make this fascinating means of energy transportation a reality. Over the course of this research, the so-called Wardenclyffe Tower, which was built in 1901, was finally built. In detail, it was a 57-meter-high radio tower made of wood, the dome of which was 20 meters in diameter. Tesla officially sold this project to its financier, J.P. Morgan, as a state-of-the-art radio transmitter. However, the genius secretly planned to make the tower a fully functional prototype of the Tesla transformer. The ingenious invention was used to generate high-frequency alternating voltage. By using these Tesla coils, it would ultimately be possible to supply the entire Earth with electrical energy. However, when Morgan got wind of the actual function of the Wardenclyffe Tower, he stopped his financial support. The differences between the extremely wealthy private banker and the scientist ultimately resulted in the final separation of the two parties, with them ending their partnership together after J.P. Morgan believed Tesla to be a madman. Thus, the tower that should have revolutionized the realm of power generation was never completed. In 1905, due to his private debts, Tesla was forced to sell the site on which the unfinished prototype was located to a hotel operator named George C. Bolt. He in turn sold the property to a demolition company, which tore the Wardenclyffe Tower to the ground with several loads of dynamite. However, other sources assume that it was in fact the U.S. government that caused the tower to be destroyed. Accordingly, the politicians suspected that the building was being used by German spies. In the end, we don't know who was officially behind the tower's demolition, but chances are it was simply demolished so that the plot of land could be used for something else. However, all was not lost. Even after all these years, the idea of Tesla's wireless energy transfer is still very much alive and well. Think about it. When Apple and other smartphone manufacturers have been unveiling new phones recently, what's one of the largest selling points for these phones? Wireless charging. Even though the technology hasn't yet developed to the point of being able to power large devices like computers or televisions without the use of a cord, the technology is very much alive and in its early infancy stages. Just imagine what the world could have been like today if Tesla managed to complete his wireless energy transmission device all those years ago. Thought photography. When the inventor was in his prime, Tesla was convinced that it was theoretically possible to capture a person's thoughts as photographs. This breathtaking idea of thought photography is based on the thesis that the image that emerges in our heads while thinking must also produce an image on the retina. If this theory should prove to be true, all that's needed is technical equipment that's capable of making the respective thought images visible. According to Tesla's own statements, the construction of such an apparatus is only a question of correct lighting, essentially likening our own thoughts to the idea of normal photography, which at the time was still in its infancy. The captured thought image would then be projected onto a screen. In reality, this would mean that we'd be able to observe all objects and scenarios that a person imagines in real time. In fact, such a technical device would be equivalent to the ability to read minds. What do you think of this idea? Let us know your opinion in the comments. Airplanes that fly without fuel. The idea of airplanes that can fly without a manual supply of fuel is based on the principle of wireless energy transport that's already been introduced. Tesla saw this area as perhaps the most valuable application of its wireless energy transmission. Should it be possible to supply an aircraft with the necessary resources in this way, they would no longer be subject to mileage restrictions while flying. In the context of this energy transfer, more and more powerful machines could be constructed, which would make it possible to get to Europe from the USA within a few hours, maybe even faster. In addition, Tesla saw this idea as a way to expedite transportation and, in essence, eliminate the need for borders and countries. He felt as though this may be the way to unite the world as a whole, a time where distances no longer play a major role. Nothing stands in the way of the unification of people, and harmonious coexistence could finally be achieved. Wireless energy refueling of airplanes would also make it possible to supply remote regions with essential goods and thus eradicate inequality between nations and potentially end world hunger. Tesla drew a harmonious, but at times utopian image of the future that's currently still far from being realized. Self-driving cars. The current forecasts assume that self-driving cars will be a part of the traffic scene in less than 20 years. What's currently in its final implementation phase was already firmly anchored in Nikola Tesla's thoughts over 100 years ago. As early as 1898, this genius proposed to a large factory group the construction and public exhibition of an automobile that was equipped to handle a large part of the driving process autonomously. Today, the world-famous company that bears Tesla's name has made it its business to put the vision of the genius into practice. At the moment, Elon Musk is still facing major difficulties in the construction of self-driving cars. The autopilot software of the corresponding e-car is still in its earliest stages of development. However, within the next decade or two, everyone in the automotive industry expects self-driving vehicles to become standardized. The Death Ray. Those of you who are familiar with the classic Star Wars trilogy know that in George Lucas's Space Tale, there's no more powerful weapon than the gigantic Death Star. This huge space station is therefore equipped with an all-destructive super laser that can even dismantle entire planets into tiny bits of space dust. To this day, people argue about whether or not Nikola Tesla worked on the development of such a death ray. The controversial reports state that the physicist was busy in the last years of his work with the construction of an overpowering particle beam weapon. With the help of this invention, however, the misunderstood genius did not want to open up the possibility of world domination, but rather end all wars in one fell swoop. Tesla is said to have followed the approach that no nation would ever again dare to provoke a military conflict if both parties had such a powerful weapon of mass destruction. As is well known, however, such a death ray weapon would never be completed. In principle, however, Tesla's ideas can be transferred to a real historical scenario. Knowing that the enemy also had powerful nuclear weapons, neither the Americans nor the Soviets dared to strike a devastating first strike during the Cold War. At the end of it all, Tesla was clearly a visionary who had a clear idea of what the future would look like. In reality, it's very possible that Tesla's ideas will eventually be released to the public. However, more than 100 years later, we're still scrambling to piece together the future that Tesla saw all those years ago. It shouldn't be long before many of Tesla's ideas and rudimentary inventions become commonplace. However, for now, we're left to wonder what Tesla's future may have looked like if the genius inventor had been able to successfully complete many of his inventions. Let us know what you think. Which idea of Nikola Tesla's future fascinated you the most? Which predictions do you think will come true, and in what ways was the genius wrong? Please let us know in the comments. Also, be sure to hit that like button and ring the notification bell for more videos, and catch you guys next time.